Hello, everybody, and welcome to the webinar in preparation for the Siena Conference, 7th Siena Conference. And the title of this working group that we are kind of preparing now is a problem-solving working group. Is a very ambitious one. EU democracy, citizen power, and the actions to overcome the disconnect, with a kind of subtitle which is democracy vector efficiency. And I hope Francesco will explain us what it means, vector, because it's not entirely clear to me. I thought that it was versus, but we'll know more. It's a bit of suspense. So this webinar aims to narrow down the scope of the problem-solving group, because the theme, the problem, the crisis, the ambition that relates to democracy in the EU is obviously immense. So we're going to try to narrow it down in this webinar. My name is Annalisa Pires. I'm a journalist, a filmmaker, and an activist, as I run a campaign across Europe to engage young people into talking about Europe. So I know something about the disengagement of young people. And the kind of run order is simple. First, we're going to hear from Professor Vezzucchelli, who teaches political science and global comparative politics at the University of Siena. Then from Calypso Nicolaidis, who's chair of global affairs at the School for Transnational Governance at the UI. And then from Francesco Grillo, the visionary director of Vision, who is the mastermind behind this ambitious conference. And luckily, we have some students who will help us to bring down the kind of theoretical discussion into their perspective on how to get young people in love with Europe again. Enough from me. I'll give the floor to Francesco Grillo, Director of Vision, to explain a little bit better what is the Vision Conference. Francesco.
Thank you very much, Annalisa. I may be the visionary convener of this conference, but you are also quite visionary, I must say, because you sort of change the order with which we will talk tonight, but that is very, very nice. Now the Siena. I say first of all, hi Calypso. Thanks for joining us. And I also welcome all the students who are quote unquote spectators now in this webinar, and also to my friend Francesco Lapenta, who is director of the Institute of the Future from the John Cabot University. And well, let me say that Francesco reminds me one characteristic of the Siena Conference on the Europe of the Future. We made the deliberate choice to be very wide and very ambitious. Normally, when you go to a conference on Europe, you have some focus on digital or on energy or on democracy, and you name it. We believe that these questions are very much connected with each other. Francesco Lapenta, you remind me this thing because you are mostly about digital sovereignty, and you name it. But again, democracy, for various reasons, is absolutely essential for finding some third way between the United States and China as far as digital is concerned. More broadly, the Siena Conference made an explicit choice to have democracy as a distinctive future. I am convinced that without engaging people, Europe will not have further integration, whatever Mario Draghi may say. Defense is one very big example of that. So we need to find some way to have people back into the drafting the Europe of the future, if we want to have a Europe which is more efficient, capable to do things. The vector is for the bull, democracy versus efficiency vector. There was a joke, Annalisa, but in mathematical terms, vectors are vectors of something. Democracy can be a vector of efficiency. Vector is indispensable to have a Europe which is stronger, which is even stronger into implementation. And I really hope that you people, Luca, Calypso, you students will find some strong arguments to demonstrate how the trade-off that normally people take for granted between democracy and efficiency is a fake trade-off. So thank you, Annalisa. Probably we can go to the students, I suppose. But
well, the program was that Luca would start a little bit introduction on his thoughts on it. Then there would be Calypso and then the students. But I don't know if it has changed. Has it changed? Okay, Luca, then the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and thanks to Francesco, thanks Annalisa, and thanks to all. I think I will not use more than 3 minutes actually, because I just want to leave the floor to those who will bring some say concrete contribution. But just to recap a little bit, something already anticipated by Francesco. The idea this year is basically to use this small but significant window of opportunity we have in this group to link somehow to communities to some extent. The community of the scholars, the academic community, more generally the intellectual or epistemic community that used to think in terms of meta theories or models, and then we lose grip, let's say, with the reality of discussion sometimes. And in any case, we are, let's say, we have been at least up to now divided in very different baskets. In particular, we want to link the discussion about the need to bring democracy to the demos. Europe of Elite is the title of one of my books. I'm an old, let's say, institutionalist. The Europe project, if I can quote another quite famous book by Max Haller. But I think that we all know that if we want to create a momentum for democracy in the European Union, we have to consider how to fix democracy again with the demos and for the demos. On the other hand, there is also, I think, but on this, Calypso is much more, say, skilled than me, problems with the existing theory, in particular with the theory of deliberation. We know that these theories have been formulated and reformulated for years, but especially in the European context, these theories are still too much let's say, theory-oriented. And I think that the good format of this conference will give us the opportunity to link these, let's say, meta visions or theories with some maybe modest but significant ideas. The students have already worked with some of these ideas, and I think they will have the chance to present some of these ideas. I do hope that in Pontignano we'll get this a specific discussion about some of these ideas, and the goal is basically to find the momentum, not in Pontignano because we need more time, but in the close future, to create fora of discussion using these ideas and bringing citizens back to the discussion about democracy in Europe. This is basically the logic of the whole thing. I think that Calypso can add something about the key concept of this structure.
But thank you, Luca. But Calypso is not with us yet, if I'm not mistaken. Has she joined us?
No, she's in.
Oh, Calypso?
Annalisa, I've been with you.
Sorry, you don't appear on my screen. So you must have been somewhere else in my... I see. There you are. Sorry, you were not on my screen. Lovely to see you, Calypso. It's been a long time. And I'm glad that we get a chance to hear again your thoughts and your ideas on this important theme that is getting more urgent by the day. So I look forward to hear your thoughts on how we can make the Siena conference really sharp on coming out with some new thoughts, also with the help of the students. But take us through what is your thinking now on this main question of how do we bring back democracy to the demos?
I mean, this is a question that has been with us since almost the beginning of the EU, certainly for every vision conference that we've had in the many last years. So I think the challenge for us, and Luca was speaking to that, and Francesco, is the way I see it is to much more systematically link with the other streams of the conference, both the panels and the other working groups. Because as you, and Francesco, I think your initial frame, sorry, I'm at Buontalenti and there's some corridor noise. The initial frame of efficiency versus democracy is a really good one. What we want to do is get the democracy theme out of its ghetto of the nice thing to have to please the citizens so they won't vote populist and they might even support the European project. So a kind of instrumental, but political instrumental. But I think what you're saying with the trade-off is policy instrument. What is the, relates less to the, yes, there is the whole political story of the sustainability and legitimacy of the European project that is more questioned and contested than ever. And as Luca also writes in his lovely one-page kind of frame, you know, the representative disconnect and all that, but none of this is new. But I think what is more new is kind of this pragmatic federalism, or this pragmatism with the Draghi report, the Letta report, the defense challenge, the AI challenge. All of them are coming to a kind of momentum. And for us, the challenge is to each time to say, what does the democratic theme, the empowerment of the people, do to area X, Y, or Z? And we need to be realistic about this. I mean, there are some broader arguments that are also very old, always there, that, you know, in terms of input, collective intelligence tends to yield better results. There's a lot of social science result from that. I mean, it's a research. On the other hand, also on implementation, acceptability of policy, if they've been discussed upstream. So you've got the intrinsic quality and then the kind of consequentialist argument. Yes. And these are applied to everything, to every domain in general, and these have caveats. For each of these arguments, you can ask under what condition? Under what condition do you maximize collective intelligence? Under what condition does the democratic character of a policy elaboration leads to better implementation, right? So we can have this kind of very broad question on the link between democracy and efficiency. But then I would suggest that in Pontignano, we apply the question kind of we encourage all the groups to ask the democracy question that is de-ghettoized, that if we had a kind of more of a citizen assembly across topics but since we don't, I think that's what we can do. So to give you one example, I've been advocating very strongly that we can't have this whole new emphasis on defense in the EU without asking the democratic question. That's what Kant did, and it makes a lot of sense. If EU is going to spend much more money on security and defense, it has to, and moreover, discussing under if our citizens might have to go to the front and give their life in addition to their tax money, we better ask what is the democratic authorization of that, right? So, but then we could take industrial policy. There, it's all about trade-offs and this versus that. How do we address the tsunami of electric vehicle in Europe that's coming? A few days ago, I came back from China, so I have a lot to say about electric vehicles, if you ask me, and their relationship with democracy, right? So that's my point, is let's not keep democracy in this kind of abstract bubble, but related to the policies and the response of efficiency versus democracy, or democracy's role in efficiency will be different in these different domains. So that's what I would advocate for Vision. But I'm eager always to hear the students. I'm just interested that we have, I'm looking at the list. We have on screen, so this is a webinar format. I mean, is there no way to change it into a Zoom format? Because I have some students from who are coming from STG, but they're not on the screen. So I'm not sure how that works.
I can leave them the possibility to speak.
Yeah, so that would be great.
Yeah, we need to know who are they. I think Yezi, she's from STG, I suppose. Okay.
But yeah, that's a very good point by Calypso, because I can't see the other members of this Zoom call. Is it possible, Antonio, to have all the people on the screen?
That's not possible because they have to they are attendees. So in the screen there are only people that should talk. If someone wants to talk from the public, I can give them.
I see. Okay, never mind. Fine. So thank you, Calypso, for your reflections. I think that now we should open the floor to the student. The first one who were supposed to intervene, Antonio, I have not received the updated run order. I have Federico, Sena, Paola, Victoria, Chan, Yasmin, Xenia. Who wants to go first?
I guess I'm going first. And for
Federico.
For our group, we'll be speaking on behalf of everyone. So me and Sena have the privilege to present the collective work of our indeed colleagues.
Okay,
thank you.
Okay,
we're the spoke
people. The floor is yours, Federico. Go.
Thank you for setting the stage. I'm sure that our colleagues will provide a rich contribution next time in the Pontignano conference. We tried to come up with some concrete ideas, as told, regarding the ongoing crisis in EU. And we started with tackling the elephant in the room, which is the problem of the unresolved tension between representation but also transparency. For example, as we know, there have been some initiatives, mainly top-downs, to try amplifying the citizens' voices. For example, formal petitions or the European Citizens Initiatives. However, looking at the Eurobarometer surveys today, we can see that half of the Europeans don't think that their voice matters in EU or in Brussels. So this disconnect happens also because of the decisions taken by the national leaders in Brussels, which feel so distant and detached from the everyday life of European citizens. We took inspiration from the work of Calypso, Nicolaidis, in the democratic disconnect. And indeed, the problem is that right now there's a union of separate individuals who are governing together, but not like a unitary and the one. For this reason, we thought of some proposals to fix this problem, starting from the technocratic argument saying that implementing citizen participation is not possible because of the problem of polarization, but also the problem of reducing efficiency. However, the data from the OECD and the deliberative way completely refutes this idea, because when you actually involve everyday people in the decision processes, you get more public judgment, so informed and reflective consensus, rather than just polarized and emotional cries. For this reason, sorry, my earbuds died. So for this reason, using this public judgment could both increase the policy resiliency, as it would be promoted by people and not just by elites. It could increase the long-term planning, because it is more likely that people would plan long-term rather than politicians who are more interested in short-term and the next round of elections. But also you could reduce the lobbying and the polarization of parties who are interested by economic or political motives. Another important thing would be institutionalizing the moments in which these discussions could occur. For example, drawing from the European Parliament's Committee Citizens Chamber, we could introduce randomly selected citizens in the EU pipeline legislative model, ensuring both co-legislation and more transparency. These formats and models could also be useful to tackle the other problem we reflected on, which is the underrepresentation perceived by the Generation Z and in general by young people. Indeed, from recent surveys, more than 1/3, more than 35% of, only 36% of eligible people voted in 2024, despite the interest in politics is almost 17%. And we noticed that the problem is not about political apathy or lack of interest, but it is because of a problem of structural barriers. For example, lack of time is the main reason. So for this reason, we tried to come up with some ideas and steps to bridge the gap between young people and politics. And these could be youth sortition quotas, so guaranteeing a representation of youth in the proposed citizens chamber. It could be either following the demographic or using the 33% representation quota, as it already been done in the Commission's own citizens panels. Another way could be by using deliberative youth check to assess the impact of policies on young people. Another way could be more practical, so providing financial support and financial compensations, academic credits to young people. And maybe one of the bigger opportunities is providing the digital tools to bridge the gap between the theoretical frameworks of participatory democracy and the younger generation. So harnessing the energy of the youth through these new tools, which could really give a hand in tackling this problem. However, there are also other problems, such as the trilemma, or how to implement actually all these proposals with difficult policies. And to tackling these other issues, I leave the floor to Sena.
Okay, thank you, Federico. So it's the turn of Sena. Please, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much to my colleague, and thank you to everyone here for giving us the opportunity to contribute to the discussion and be a part of this panel today. So I would like to take the word from Federico and start with my idea of my approach, the frame that I used also from Professor Nikolaidis. And I've already heard some keywords that I was going to mention here, taking inspiration from her works. So referring back to what Federico has mentioned about the trilemma. So the trilemma, the triangle, the three parts, what the 3 points are, we have at one point the transnational democratic interdependence, and at the two other hands we have the national democratic legitimacy and the local democratic legitimacy. Now, again, as my colleague Federico has mentioned, usually what happens in our context is Brussels and national governments might be in agreement about policies such as an energy policy, but what happens is, in the usual nature of a trilemma, is you have to choose two and sacrifice the other. So what is sacrificed usually in an agreement with the Brussels and the national governments is, of course, the local vibrancy, the local democratic legitimacy is the one that is sort of ignored. And here we have the disconnect. That's how we end up with the representative disconnect. And to narrow down our idea of citizen empowerment, I would like to refer to a proposal made by one of my colleagues in the University of Siena, Jihan. So we discussed in our group the idea of nuclear energy revival. So for this idea of nuclear energy revival, my colleague is taking inspiration from the idea of citizen assemblies. And he's proposing that we should have public forums, but not just one-off public forum, or instead of a referendum that happens every once in a while when that certain point enters into the political agenda of the government, but rather a public forum that would engage citizens more with the issue at hand. So if we think about, in the context of nuclear energy revival, this is a very technical issue. And there's a lot of empirical data. So what we would need in this context, in such a public forum, is that we would need a simplification of the narrative. We would need to provide information to people, but we would need to make that meaningful, because in such a technical issue, of course, if we can't bring it in a meaningful way, then again, we would be stuck in a disconnect. Because when we have a referendum, if people are not informed about the choice that they're given about the choice that they're about to make, I think we are still perpetuating the disconnect there. So people will naturally choose intuitively, and we will not have informed decisions. And this is why we think that providing meaningful information is very important. But we're not also saying that we should do this to make people smarter. No, because then we are again in our high horse. We're again imposing, we're again stuck in that ultimatum of ignoring the local democratic vibrancy. So we don't want to make people smarter, no, but we are trying to, and now I'm referring to Professor Nikolaidis's concept of what we would like to do is to create a collective intelligence. And this would help us to empower citizens. So the collective intelligence, this concept, is also something that I have seen together with the concept of the epistemic democracy, which can be created within these public forums, within these citizen assemblies. And this here, I'm also referring to the work of Professor Nikolaidis in the European Union Citizen Assemblies. So to connect this to our idea of epistemic democracy is, if we had this two-way connection, then we create a sort of a feedback loop within the informed public preference and the institutional agendas. So if we could achieve that, we think that would be a great step towards efficiency. So what we would have in that two-way feedback loop sort of is that we would have the informed public opinion and the collective demands that would get then fed back into the institutional agendas, and they would also stimulate decision-making in the institutions. So we think that this public forum idea can be, even though it's ambitious, it can be a way for to try for efficiency and to try to engage people more, but not just for the sake of engaging and informing them. Again, to wrap up, to give them the empowerment and to give them the authorship to be actors in the democracy that they are actually the root of as the demos. So, well, we thank again the panel and everyone for giving us the opportunity to share our ideas. And this is how we wrap up our ideas of our group. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sena. I am not sure which one of the other students wants to intervene. Can you raise your digital hand? Who is Victoria, Paola, Chan, Yasmin ready to intervene, or can we start the discussion? Hello, hello, hello. Can you hear me?
Maybe one of our STG students, Yesi or Anna.
They can speak now if they want.
Hello, but I think my camera isn't available here.
Okay, so I can see your hand. You are Sihan from the STG, right?
I'm from University of Siena.
Okay, so you're University of Siena, but Calypso, just for me to know, are there students also ready to intervene from your school?
Well, they're here. I don't know. I can't speak for them.
Yes, he's from, yes, he's
Anna, but I don't know if they want to speak.
Okay, never mind. So,
okay.
Yeah, Siana, the floor is yours, and in the meantime, if Antonio or Calypso can understand if someone else from the UI STGI wants to talk, just raise your hand. Siana, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I would have just like to add a little point about the proposal that Sana talked about. So we all know that. I mean, I wanted to specify this issue about the nuclear revival because I think that is one of the issues that we can talk about more objectively rather than politicizing the issue. So what I did was this topic is since it's too technocratic, not all the citizens, of course, have the same set of ideas as all the politicians or all the technocrats have. So what I did was I just wanted to have a couple ideas about the average carbon dioxide emissions, efficiency, and the land use index of all conventional energy sources and the nuclear source, and I try to compare them. And when we look at the average carbon dioxide emissions, we see that nuclear energy even creates lower carbon dioxide emissions, lower than wind energy sources. And when it comes to efficiency, of course, it's trillions of times bigger than the efficiency we get from the coal. And when we look at the index, again, we see that nuclear energy is the most efficient energy sources among the all conventional energy sources we are still using. But since because of the historical events that kind of traumatized our perception about the nuclear energy, of course, the general public is more skeptical about this issue. So my proposal was also kind of about, creating, if we did have the opportunity to create a kind of a commission about the nuclear energy revival between the scientists and maybe a technocratic group from the European Commission regarding the issue, and they could just come up with these kind of statistics that I found on the internet, basically, and we could just translate these objective findings into more daily used words. And I think we could just also come up with a kind of a paper with these sources and then translate these findings into all the languages that are spoken in the European Union. And we could just also contribute the citizen assemblies in all the countries, and we can just come up with more citizen assemblies in the counties, in the countries. And for example, a citizen that is residing in a countryside in Hungary, for example, they could just visit the citizen assemblies, and they could just get a simple idea about it. And also, when I looked, when was the last time that a referendum happened in the European Union about this issue? I've seen that it was in 2011, when Italian citizens reaffirmed opposition to restarting nuclear after Fukushima. And before that, the most recent one was in 1978, when Austrian citizens rejected the already built Zwentdorf nuclear plant. So that is why I think it is not so hard to translate these objective findings into more daily use words, and then we could just turn this into a cycle that citizens can get more can get more informative about the issue, and we can just test, and we can just get a feedback from them. Maybe not referendum every year, of course, but maybe from other means. That was it.
Okay, thank you very much, Sian. Now,
Anna, one second. I would suggest Antonio to possibly make all the spectator capable to talk. We also have, if we can, we also have a Mark. Sorry?
They are all capable to talk.
No, there is a Marco.
Also
Okay, we have
yes.
Marco. We have Marco Buti that I did not recognize because it's a Marco iPhone. There is the Anna Peceva. So we have quite few people. So I know that Marco had a comment, but just to. Is there any comments from anybody?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, here you are,
Okay.
Marco.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I'm here with my iPhone. It's it's a bit of a difficult connection,
Yeah.
I apologize. I joined only a bit later, and so after the beginning, I didn't hear the initial introduction. But I have a question. I mean, the kind of discussion that we have in the marketplace now on the trade-off between efficiency and democracy, which for economists in a sense is replacing big time the classic trade-off, alleged trade-off between efficiency and equity, I mean, is led essentially by the claim by some, the sort of Peter Thiel or other people who associate efficiency with, total free hand, so a total liberty, in particular for, new technologies and AI and, technologies which imply very high return to scale. And in this case here, maximizing efficiency cannot be squared with the democratic principles. I'm trying to depict their views a bit in a rough way, yeah, but it's extremizing a bit. But that is the kind of discussion that we have. That is over there. So this is the kind of tension that we have in those views. So I think what we should do is, in this webinar here in Pontignano, obviously, is that if we pursue this line of thinking on the trade-off between efficiency and equity, we have to address this claim squarely. We cannot just let it go not confront it straight away. And I think I have to say what I have heard so far, I think is not, it does not provide an answer, at least for what I've heard, to that type of allegations. And it is something that is thriving. One may not like it, but we need to, I think, to address it head on.
I agree wholeheartedly with the reflection of Marco, because obviously so far we have also not talked about the media. How do you talk to the people? While public forums and citizen assemblies are very interesting and valuable, we can't underestimate the fact that today, in 2026, people get their information mainly from social media that are controlled by America and China. And they drive exactly that kind of discourse that Marco was referring to, that efficiency doesn't need the democracy. So while all the aspects touched upon so far, they're all equally interesting and valuable, there is a big elephant in the room, especially when we look at the state of the information, which is the foundation of democracy. There is no democracy without proper information, because obviously citizens need to make up their mind and their opinion through the information they receive. So if we don't talk also about what kind of information they're getting, we risk not really focusing on one important aspect. But thank you, Marco. Is there any other contribution from our attendees? Antonio, can you help us see if there are students who want to chip in?
If they want, they can talk and also raise their hands so they understand what's talking.
Sorry, because I can't see the audience, so it is a strange visualization, so I can't see if there are raised...
Anna, if I can chip in, because I don't think there is anybody ready to do that now.
Okay.
I would try to go back to a question of method, because what Marco was saying is very true. And yet, as Calypso mentioned, I do think that we need cases. So the democracy versus efficiency trade-off is a very big one. We need to probably use the other session of the Siena conference, or at least some of them. Next year we will do it better, Calypso, because now the time is a little bit constrained. But we need cases, we need examples. For instance, one thing that appears to me very interesting as a case is energy. So we are talking about nuclear, but we can talk also about renewables. There is some assumption that nobody is proved, that people, for some reason, especially in some countries, are not that keen about renewables. Why is such? Where renewables also means lower bills, more secure networks, and blah blah blah. So. But this is just an example. And then Calypso was talking about defense, which is probably even more complex. But we need cases. I would try not to be too generic on how to tackle this trade-off. So let's probably try. I'm talking especially with students. The nuclear thing is interesting, but there may be other examples where we try to say what needs to be done to use people energy, people intelligence, collective intelligence, to make better. Another example: better regulation. people would be absolutely crucial to make regulation, for instance, even on digital, that people understand. And if people understand the regulation, those regulations will be much more powerful, much stronger. So let's try to use cases. This is my my suggestion.
Okay, thank you, Francesco. So if the students have all presented their cases, I would go back to Luca and Calypso to have kind of their thoughts and then go towards the conclusions. Luca?
Yes, please. Thanks. Well, Francesco is right. I think we need cases, but we need a little bit also rule of engagement, I think. And this is valid for our relationship to media people, which is a point raised by Annalisa, but probably even to our institutions, education institution. To some extent, we need to bring some kind of creativity when we talk about these things. So my proposal is on this side, the side of the, let's say, the rules of engagement. I think that we can have cases, students, they are working on this. Probably in 1 week from now, we can have some other good ideas. But what is important is to create momentum for a discussion among all of us to create conditions for this kind of fora. No matter if we call with different names, but I think this is a good opportunity, and I'm curious to know from Calypso how we can link together different kind of not necessarily students or young people, but different kind of citizens, and to some extent bring them to our, not to the classes physically, but in connection to what we do in our daily work. This is important. And we can actually do something out of the Pontignano conference, because in Pontignano there's no time and space. But maybe we can have a second episode in autumn, for instance, doing a sort of tentative assembly with different students and different academics, but even, of course, stakeholders to be invited. This is my poor proposal at the moment. Thanks.
Thank you, Luca. Calypso?
Well, Luca, I mean, there is the longer term, but in the short term, can you hear me well? Because I'm having problems with my computer right now. Yeah, okay. So one of the things I pick up is Francesco saying we need examples. So for the students, it was great to hear you, and thank you for referring to my work. Indeed, we can talk more about the implications, very concrete. Yes, it's a theory, democracy, but it's all about horizontal entanglement, really. And that's why citizen assemblies across borders, transnational, translocal, connecting locality across borders is a direct, concrete application of democracy. And then the topics that the citizens discuss alongside social society actors, businesses, all sorts of stakeholders, these topics connect the very local and the very global. That's planetary politics. And that's the kind of thing Vision is interested in. So any topic goes. Any topic that is of common interest and collective interest is relevant. So, Francesco, you were picking up on renewables. I was just at a conference in France where we had a lot of discussion, indeed, Cihan, on the nuclear. We were in Normandy and we were looking at, the popular, the consultation, and then renewables, how local communities are trying to bring their source of energy closer to their everyday life. Very interesting examples on sustainable use of wood. For instance, you wouldn't think that's quite a big renewable, but there are lots of very concrete examples. And I think it's right in our conversation. Sometimes we tend to be too abstract. So yes, let's do theory of various kinds of democracy and the renewal of representative democracy. But, you know, when we're facing a world of techno-populism, of techno-authoritarianism, the overwhelming, you know, anti-democratic potential of AI, you know, we have to mobilize, and we can't be naive. And Marco was right, and Annalisa was right. So we need to really, really, you know, not just kind of jump up and down and say citizen assembly. We have to be much, much more concrete and combine many instruments. That's the point. We have to talk about how you combine different ways of doing democratic engagement. So that we have a big agenda for us next week.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Calypso. Just briefly, let me bring back Marco again, who wanted to add a comment, and then we can wrap it up. And I'm sure that we will have a lot of food for thoughts for next week. Marco, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Annalisa. Now, several of you may have seen that we published now a month ago the Florence report. So one of the main themes of the report is that, or the main claims, is that we cannot engage as European vis-a-vis China and vis-a-vis the US by imitation. So we cannot get onto a, you know, catching up approach. We're trying to get to the frontier of innovation the way they have shaped it. And so the approach is that we will need to find EU-specific innovation and technological trajectories, which brings together what is, you know, quintessentially European. So efficiency, equity, and sustainability. So this is what is put forward there as a general approach. So I think if we take this, you know, basic conceptual framework, and one can elaborate on that, we should try, I think, to fit in the concrete examples Francesco is calling for, and translated into the, you know, the democratic way forward that Calypso is alluding to, and let's say shape it within that context. I think this would give, let's say, a rigorous, relatively robust, you know, analytical setting, and then filling in with concrete examples, and also in terms of the what, but the how also. So, for instance, I mean, I am totally against criminalizing regulation and get onto a deregulatory spree, because I think that would be exactly the opposite of what we would want to do if we want to, you know, to pursue EU-specific innovation trajectories. So I think one example, it's a small one, but I mean that I think we mentioned already in other circumstances. I mean, with George Papakonstantinou last year, we participated into the Citizens Panel on the EU budget. I think that was well before the Commission put forward the proposal in July 2025. But that, you know, it was a pretty, you know, a pretty good experience, quite promising. Definitely, one would have to, you know, build on that, you know, big time to get to a critical mass. But that is an example of, you know, engaging citizens, and I think doing that on the EU budget, and also very urgent. We'll have to achieve an agreement before the national ratification by the end of this year. So, I mean, if we say something at the Pontignano conference, I think it may have an impact, and we can do that, I think, on regulation also. So I would suggest to take these coordinates to shape up our work.
Thank you, Marco. Francesco, do you want to add something in conclusion to wrap it up? You should unmute yourself.
So, it has been a great webinar, the last one before the conference. I hope Marco saved some copies of the Florence report that were handed out at DUI. So do bring some copies of the report with you, Marco. My very last thing, yes, let's try to bring some examples, some cases where democracy was important, not just to give quote unquote legitimacy to the decision, but actually to produce a better decision with better performance, to be more precise. Democracy can be something to produce better performance in very specific cases. Even we can show this thing, it will be really great, a great achievement for the Siena Conference. And I believe that we need to break up mostly cognitive biases. It's not about conflict of interest or something. We assume that democracy is something that reduces efficiency. We need just to break this cognitive bias. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Francesco. I think that that's a very good idea for our students in the audience. Maybe they can help us getting to Siena with some extra research on what we have discussed today, namely clear examples of when democracy and collective intelligence brings more efficiency. The idea that Marco mentioned also about having a EU-specific perspective on this, which doesn't try to emulate the US or China or the rest of the world. And examples, citizen assemblies, instruments to actually veiculate these reflections to the citizens, because I'm sorry if I come back to this, but that's my trade. We need also to understand how we can do better in bringing these ideas, these thoughts, this information to the wider public, because at the moment they're not reached by this information, they're reached by the information that favors fighting integration, fighting European point of view. So that's also something important to remember. So for the students, if you can help us elaborate on this, I look forward to the discussion with all of you in Siena, and thank you very much for attending.
Thanks, bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Have a good evening.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Bye.